Hello, this is going to be a lesson on solving equations. What is an equation? An equation is two expressions equal to each other. In fact, the word equation comes from the word equal. If you notice, the first four letters of equation is the same as the word equal. So, anytime you see equation, remember the word equal. You're supposed to have an equal sign if it is an equation. Okay? The goal of solving equations is to get the letter alone on one side of the equation. What do I mean by one side? Well, the equal sign divides the equation into two sides. So if you want, you can draw a border right at the equal sign. Okay? And my goal is to get the letter alone on one side of the equation. Now before I begin, I'm going to make the problems a little bit bigger so that you can see it better. There you go. And basically here I have an equation, and if you notice I have the x here, but the x is not alone. It has a 3 in front and a 5 after it. So my goal is to get the x alone. So in order to do that, I need to get rid of the 3 and also the 5. You always start to get rid of the number farthest away from the x, which in this case would be the 5. So we're going to send that 5 to the other side. Okay? Please remember this when solving equations. Whenever you move a number from one side of the equation, like we're going to move this 5 to the other side, whenever you move a number from one side to the next, you are going to change the sign of that number. The sign of this 5 is positive 5. If I send it to the other side, it will become negative 5. So I'm sending that 5 to the other side, but in this side the 3x still remains. On this side I have a 29, and I'm moving that 5 to the other side, so this will become negative 5. So if you notice, 3x and 29 stayed put, but the 5 moved to the other side and it changed its signs. Now 29 minus 5. 29 is positive, 5 is negative. Signs are different, so you subtract. So it would be 24. And it would be positive 24 because 29 is the biggest digit and 29 is positive. Alright, so as we can see here, we're getting closer to meeting our goal. Our goal is to get the letter x alone on one side. Before we had 3 and 5 next to it. Now I only have 3. Now how do I get rid of the 3? To get rid of the number next to the letter x, all you have to do is divide both sides by that number, which is in this case 3. 3 divided by 3, in other words, the 3 cancels. So you're left with x. Okay? In reality, 3x divided by 3 equals 1x, but do you have to write the 1? No, the 1 can become invisible. Why? Because 1 times x is x. So does it matter if I write the 1? No, it doesn't. As a shortcut, we usually say the 3 cancels with the 3. I'm left with x. Okay? 24 divided by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And there we go. We have solved the equation because we got the letter x alone on one side. We met our goal. Okay? Alright. Let's do the same on the next problem. I want the x alone, so what I'm going to do is going to send that 7 to the other side. And by sending that 7 to the other side, on this side I have 4x equals, I bring down the 5, and the 7 moves over and comes in as positive 7. Now here I have 4x, 5 plus 7, signs are the same. I would add, I'll get positive 12 because 7 is the biggest. I want the x alone, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4. The 4 cancels. I'm left with x. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And that's my answer because the x is left alone. Alright, let's go on to the next problem. Let's put a border down. It's a reminder that here's one side, here's the next. We want to get the x alone, So we're going to move that 8 to the other side. That 8 is a positive 8. So when I move to the other side, it's going to become negative 8. The negative 2x, I'm going to bring it down. The 14, I'm going to bring it down. Now remember, 14 does not have a sign, but now because it's going to be after the 8, I must put the sign, so it's positive 14 right there. Okay? So remember, if a number does not have a sign, it's positive. But if you put a number in front of it, that positive has to become visible. Alright, very well. Now I have negative 8 plus 14. Signs are different according to the rules of adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. If the signs are different, I need to subtract. So 14 minus 8 is 6. And I'm going to use the sign of the biggest, which is 14, so 6 is positive. Now to get the x alone, I am going to divide both sides by negative 2. If you notice, when you divide by the number and the same sign. The reason why is because the negative cancels, the 2 cancels. What are you left with? You're left with x alone. And 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. And that's your answer right there. Alright. Let's move over the paper so you can see the next 2 problems. Very well. Let's put our border down. You know, I myself, personally, I like to have the x on the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send that 2x to the other side. So it will become a positive 2x. And I'm going to bring down the 9. And you see the 7 here, I'm going to send it over there. So basically I'm putting the numbers with x on the left and the numbers without x on the right. See? I move the negative 2x to the other side, so it becomes positive 2x. I move the 7 to the other side. So I'm kind of rearranging the numbers so they will be the way I like it. Okay? So now I have 2x on this side. 9 minus 7 is 2. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So these 2 cancel. I'm left with x. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. And there we go. Very good. The next problem is a little bit different than the ones before because now I have x's on both sides. But remember our goal. Our goal is to have the letter alone on one side only. Okay? So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to rearrange the numbers. I'm going to send that 7x to this side and the 4 to the other side. Okay? One way that I do it is I say, I want the numbers with x on the left. So will this guy stay or go? Well, this guy is on the left, so it's fine because he has an x. Well, does the negative 4 need to stay or go? Well, this one does not have an x, so let's send it to the other side. So if I send the negative 4 to the other side, it becomes positive 4. Now let's go to the 7x. The 7x stay or goes? Well, it has an x, so he needs to go. So goes to the other side, becomes negative 7x. And the 14 does not have an x, so it is on the right side. So let's just bring it down. So do you notice that all I did is rearrange the numbers so the numbers with x is on the left, the numbers without x is on the right. Now, just add and subtract. Signs are different, so you subtract, you get 3x. Sign of the biggest, 10 is bigger than 10, so sign is positive. Signs are the same, you add, so it'll be 18. And it'll be positive because 14 is positive. That's the biggest digit. And now the last thing is to divide both sides by 3. The 3 cancels. I'm left with x equals 6. And that's my answer right there. Alright, very well. Let's go on to the next problem. There's a little typo here. This is supposed to be a negative, not an equal sign. So I apologize for that. Here's my equal sign, so I'm going to draw my line. If you notice now, I have more numbers on each side of the equation. So first thing we want to do right now, before we start moving them around, is Forget about this side for a second and ask yourself, can I combine any terms on this side of the equation? And if you notice, these two are like terms. Why are they like terms? Because they both have x. 6 is not a like term because it does not have an x. Don't worry about the other side for now, okay? Just focus on one side at a time. So 8 minus 5, signs are different. You will subtract, so you get 3x. And it's positive because 8 is positive. And the 6, since you cannot combine it with anybody, you're just going to bring it down. Now that we combine this side, let's forget about this side for a second and let's focus our attention on the other side. What can I combine on this other side? I can combine the 3 with the negative 7. With the 2x, there's nothing I can combine, so all I'm going to do is bring it down. And positive 3 minus 7, signs are different. You subtract, so it would be 4. And you're going to use the sign of the biggest, which should be negative. Now that we have them, now it's time to switch them around, like to rearrange the numbers so the numbers with x is on the left and the numbers without x is on the right. So in this case, will this guy stay or go? Well, he has x, so it stays. Will this guy stay or go? Well, this guy here does not have an x, so he needs to go. So it goes to the other side, so it becomes positive 6. The 2x, it has an x, so it goes to the other side, so it becomes negative 2x. And the negative 4 is in the right place, so just bring it down. 3x minus 2x is 1x, or just x. And 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's our answer right there. Okay? Alright, very well. Let's go on to the next problem. The next problem now has parentheses. Anytime you see parentheses, you want to get rid of the parentheses. And how do we do that? We use something called the distributive property. Distributive property means you're going to multiply whatever number is in front of the parentheses by what's inside the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply this 3 by this 2, 3 by the negative 3x. I'm also going to multiply the 6 times the 7, and the 6 times negative x. I will not multiply 6 times 6x because this 6x is not inside the parentheses, okay? So let's multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times negative 3x is negative 9x. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times negative x is negative 6x. And we're not going to multiply 6x, we're just going to bring it down. And there we go. We eliminated parentheses. Now remember our border, okay? And if you notice, there's nothing I can combine on this side, but there's something I can do here. I can combine these two guys because they both have axes. So, first step is to get rid of the parentheses. Second step is to combine like terms. So in this case, I didn't combine anything on this side, so I just bring it down. But on this side, I bring down the 42, and negative 6 plus 6x is 0. So in other words, we say it cancels. Alright, I have a much simpler equation now. My job is to get the x alone. So I'm going to send the 6 to the other side. So this becomes negative 9x equals 42. And when I send that 6 to the other side, it becomes negative 6. Now I have negative 9x. Signs are different because positive and a negative are different signs. So you subtract. 42 minus 6 is 36. And it's positive because 42 is the biggest digit and it's positive. Now you're going to divide both sides by negative 9. And 36 divided by 9 is 4. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So my final answer is x equals negative 4. Very well. Let's go on to the next problem. I have a similar problem to the one before. Basically, here's my border. I see parentheses, so my first step is to get rid of the parentheses. 3 times w is 3w. 3 times 7 is 21. And bring down the negative 2w. Remember, you don't multiply the 3 times the negative 2w because this negative 2w is not inside the parentheses. And on this side, there's nothing I can do, so I'm just going to bring it down. Now, after you get rid of the parentheses, now it's time to combine like terms. Can I combine anything on this side? Yes, I can. 3w and 2w gives me 1w, or w. And the 21, I'm just going to bring it down. On this side of the equation, there's nothing I can do, so just bring it down. Now that you brought it down, let's rearrange. This is 1w. I'm going to bring this guy over to the other side. This will be negative w. The 21 is going to go to that side, so it will be negative 21. And the 12 will stay there, so we'll just leave it there. So basically, I rearrange. Will the w stay or go? You will stay. The 21 needs to go, so goes to the other side, becomes negative. The w needs to go, so it becomes negative w. And 12, just bring it down. Please remember that you don't have to write this one. So if you want it, you can just write w. Let me just erase that. Okay. But if you write the 1, it doesn't hurt you. Okay. So just know that if you don't see a 1, there's an invisible 1 right there. Okay. And here I'm doing 1w minus 1w equals 0. In other words, they cancel and you get a 0. On the other side, I get negative 21 plus 12. Signs are different, so you're going to subtract. So this would be a 9. And it will be a negative 9 because 21 is the biggest digit. And 21 is negative. Now, look what happened. The letter disappeared. And remember what our goal is in solving equations is to get the letter alone on one side. But how can I do that if the letter disappears? Well, basically, this is a special case. If the letter disappears, in other words, if the letter cancels out, like it did in this problem, you're going to be left with a statement. In this case, is the statement true or false? Well, 0 is not equals negative 9, so this is a false statement. If you have a false statement, you're going to write no solution. Okay, and you can abbreviate no solution with NS, or you can use this symbol right here, which means no solution. Alright? So, no solution, or the symbol of no solution. Okay? Very well. Let's go on to the back side of this paper. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and cross it out, this middle problem here, because we just actually solved this problem. It was a typo. I kind of wrote the problem twice, so I apologize for my mistake there. And let's go on to the next problem. I see parentheses, first order of business, get rid of the parentheses. How do we do that? We multiply the number that is outside the parentheses with the numbers that are inside. And on every parenthesis that we have. Okay. Now, there's no number in front of the parenthesis, but remember, there's always an invisible 1 there. So you can put a 1 there, right there. So I have negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Negative 1 times v is negative 1v, or negative v. Then on this side I have 3 times v is 3v. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. And then you're just going to bring down the negative 4v. Once you eliminate parentheses, you're going to combine like terms. So on this side, I cannot combine anything, so just bring everything down. But on this other side, I can combine the 3v with the negative 4v, so I get negative v. Because signs are different, I subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1, and I'll use the sign of the biggest, which is negative. And I'll bring down the negative 9. Very well. Now let's rearrange the terms over here. The terms with a letter is going to go to the left. The numbers without a letter go to the right. So with this guy's stay or go, it will go to the other side, so it will become positive 9. This negative v is in the right place, so let's bring it down. This negative v needs to go, so it goes to the other side, becomes a positive v. And this negative 9 is going to bring it down. Negative v plus v cancels. You're left with 0. And on this side you have 9 minus 9 is 0. So again, the letter disappears. You're left with a statement. But in this case, this statement is true. 0 equals 0. So what are you going to write? You're going to write all real numbers. And yes, you can abbreviate with ARN. But basically, this stands for all real numbers. Okay? So, if the letter disappears and you're left with the true statement, you're going to write all real numbers. And if you get a false statement, you write no solution. Okay? Very well. Let's go ahead and try the next problem. Again, there was a typo. It's supposed to be an X, not a C. This is a simple equation compared to the previous ones with parentheses. But the reason why I want to do this is because let's take a look at it. Basically, we don't have any parentheses, so we don't have to worry about getting rid of the parentheses. We cannot combine any terms. So let's go ahead and rearrange the numbers. Numbers with X stays to the left. Numbers without X go to the right. So will this guy stay or go? It stays. Will this guy stay or go? It goes, so it becomes positive 5. The 7x stay or goes? It goes, so it becomes negative 7x. And the negative 5 stays, so we'll just bring it down. And what I get here, I get negative 4x. And 5 minus 5 is 0. Now, if you notice, I still have an x. So how do I get the x alone? I'll divide both sides by negative 4. And x equals 0. So that's my answer for this problem. Alright, let's go to the next problem. The next problem, let's put the border down. I see that I have parentheses, so first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the parentheses by multiplying. I'm going to multiply the number that's outside the parentheses by every number that is inside. Please remember there's an invisible 1 right there. And actually, let me make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. So if we multiply, 5 times 2y is 10y. 5 times 8 is 40. Negative 3 times 2y is negative 6y. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. And then 3 times 2y is 6y. 3 times 7 is 21. Negative 1 times 2y is negative 2y. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. On a big problem like this, it's always good to double check your multiplication. 5 times 2y is 10y. You're checking for two things. You're checking that you multiplied the numbers correctly, and also that you didn't forget the letter. It's very common for students to do 5 times 2 and write 10 and forget the y. And that's going to mess up the rest of your equation. So please be very careful. Just take a few extra seconds, but it's all worth your time because you will save yourself time because you're going to save you from making mistakes. Okay? So 5 times 2y is 10y. 5 times 8 is 40. Negative 2 times 2y is negative 6. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. 3 times 2y is 6y. 3 times 7 is 21. Negative times 2y is 2y. Negative times positive 5 is negative 5. Alright, so I eliminated parentheses. Next step is combine like terms. So on this side, what can I combine? 10y and 6y. So when I combine that, I'll get 4y. Then I have 40 minus 18. Signs are different, so I will subtract. And 40 minus 18 is 22. And it will be positive because 40 is bigger than 18. So sign of the biggest digit. And then I have 6y minus 2y. That will be 4y. Signs are different. You subtract, so you get 4y. And here I have 21 minus 5. It will be positive 16. Alright. Now it's time to move the numbers with letter to the left, and the numbers without letter to the right. So the 4y will stay. This 22 is going to go to the other side, becomes negative 22. This 4y is going to move, so it will be negative 4y. And the 16 is on the right place, so we're just going to bring it down. Now 4y minus 4y cancel, so you get a 0. And negative 22 plus 16. Signs are different, so you subtract. You're going to get negative 22 plus 16 is 6. And sign of the biggest would be negative. So in this case, the letter disappears, so I have one of those special cases where I have to ask, is this true or false? This is false, and because it's false, then I write no solution. Or again, you can use the symbol of no solution. Alright? Let's go on to the next problem. Remember, you can always stop the video if you want to look at the problem closer. Okay? This problem again has parentheses, so first order business, get rid of the parentheses. How do we do that? We multiply. Okay? We need to be very, very careful with the signs, okay? Positive 6 times 3x is 18x. 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. Negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x. Negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. And then I have 8 times 3x is 24x. 8 times 5 is 40. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. Negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. Okay, once you multiply everything, just take a few seconds to check your multiplication. 6 times 3x is 18x. 6 times 3 is 30. Negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x. Negative 32. 24x. 40. Negative 10x. Negative 30. Again, I'm checking if I did the multiplication correctly and if I didn't forget any x's. Okay? Once you eliminate parentheses, now it's time to combine like terms. So on this side I can combine 18x and 8x. So this would be 10x. And then negative 30, negative 32, signs are the same. You're going to add, you're going to get 62. And it's going to be negative because the sign is the biggest digit. And here on this side I have 24x and 10x. Signs are different, so you subtract, you get 14x. And it's positive because 24 is bigger, the biggest digit. And then we have 40 and negative 30. Signs are different, you subtract, so you get 10. Sign of the biggest will be positive. Alright, at this stage, now you're ready to put the numbers with letters on the left, numbers without letters on the right. So this guy, 10x, will stay because it has a letter. The negative 62 needs to go because it does not have a letter, so it goes to the other side, becomes positive 62. The 14x needs to go to the other side, so it becomes negative 14x. and the 10 is on the right side, so we're going to put positive 10. Okay, 10 minus 14. Signs are different. You subtract, so it'll be 4x, and it'll be negative because 14 is bigger, the biggest digit. And 62 plus 10 will be 72. To get the x alone, we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. 4 cancels, negative cancels, you're left with x. 72 divided by negative 4 is 18, and it's going to be a negative because a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Alright? And that's the answer for this problem. Alright, now I have one more example. It's not part of the notes, but it's like a handout that I gave my students, or I give my students often in my classes. Basically, it's a little handout that shows an equation being solved step by step. And on the side here is the rules that I'm applying for this step. So if you can notice here, I'm multiplying, I eliminate parentheses by multiplying. And here's a reminder of the rule of multiplication. A positive times a positive, positive, positive times a negative is a negative, negative and a positive is a negative, negative and negative is a positive. So if you notice, I'm putting the arrows that I'm going to multiply, and I multiply and I get this. Once I have this, now if you notice, I underline the like terms. So basically I'm going to combine like terms, and so I combine these guys. And here I have a little description of the rules of adding and subtracting. It might be a little bit harder to see on the video, but if you print this out, you'll be able to see it better. But basically it tells you the rules of adding and subtracting, and basically that's the rules that I apply when I combine 3x plus 10x minus 27. Okay? And then I did negative 12, negative 15. Signs are the same. You add, get 27. Sign is the biggest. So basically these are the rules that I'm using. After combining like terms, the next step is to move the numbers with x to the left and the numbers without x to the right. Remember, if you change size, change signs. So basically here I move the 8x to the other side and the 27 to this side. Now I combine them, so I get negative 6x and positive 33. And the last step is to divide both sides by the number next to the x without changing its sign. So if you notice, I divide both sides by negative 6 without changing the sign of 6. Okay? And the negative cancels, the 6 cancels, you're left with x. And you're left with 33 divided by 6, which can be reduced by 3, which is negative 11 over 2. And you can write 11 over 2 as a mixed number. 2 goes into 11 5 times. Copy the 2. 5 times 2 is 10. To get to 11, you need one more. Okay? And positive divided by negative is a negative. Alright? So this is a good example to keep if anytime you forget the steps, especially if you go from Algebra 1 to Algebra 2, sometimes during the summer you forget, or you take a future class and you forget how to add and subtract, or how to do the steps of solving the equation. This is a very good example to keep in for future reference. Alright, this concludes the lesson on solving equations. I hope this lesson was helpful, and thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day.